Hello, everyone. I'm Major Garrett in Washington. Tonight on America Decides, President Trump ventured to the Justice Department today and talked about his relationship to the department and, importantly, its relationship to him. This, by itself, is news. You see, presidents tend to soft pedal or pretend not to recognize the long-standing relationship between a president, the attorney general, and the Justice Department. More on that in a moment. In the past 25 years, for example, only 2 presidents before Mr. Trump even traveled to the department. And both of those visits, we should note, were entirely ceremonial. George W. Bush to mark the naming of the building for Robert F. Kennedy, and Barack Obama to herald the retirement of Attorney General Eric Holder. Mr. Trump's visit was entirely different, and it underscored the fear that Mr. Trump will now use the Department of Justice as a tool for retribution or vengeance. That fear runs hot among congressional Democrats, some still inside the department, as well as many department employees recently ousted. The president, as you know, has signed nearly 100 executive orders and actions, and as a consequence, more than 100 lawsuits have been filed to block or curtail those actions or orders. The Supreme Court, with its 6-3 conservative majority and 3 Trump-appointed justices, may soon decide the extent of Mr. Trump's expansive view of executive power. The president's remarks today appear directed, at least in part, to that audience, the Supreme Court. The president ran and won, we should note, in part because he argued that America's legal system was out to get him via the Russia collusion investigation and federal indictments over his alleged mishandling of classified documents and seeking, as he did, to overturn the 2020 election. Mr. Trump said he was blameless, utterly and completely, and that reckless application of federal laws, not his underlying conduct, was to blame. His victory empowers him now to punish and reward. Before we get to that, a quick note on the history of presidents and their attorney generals. The position dates back to George Washington, and almost every attorney general from then to now has been a close political ally of the president. In fact, the few attorney general nominees who actually attracted opposition in public usually drew that ire because they were thought to be insufficiently loyal to the president. This is a couple of examples out of history. President Eisenhower's attorney general, William Rogers, looked out relentlessly for the political interests of Ike and his then vice president, Richard Nixon, navigating both of them through scandals large and small. And when Nixon finally became president, his attorney general, John Mitchell, was so wrapped up in Watergate-related activities of the president's re-election campaign that he was convicted of conspiracy, obstruction of justice, and perjury. All presidents know their attorney generals well. What they do with that knowledge and how it shapes American justice is now up for grabs as much as it ever has been. I want to start tonight with Scott MacFarlane, who joins us from the Justice Department. Scott?
And Major, this was a speech that was, to a degree, unprecedented. It's been a decade since a president stepped foot in here to give remarks, and that was President Obama in a farewell address to his outgoing attorney general. But what was particularly provocative about these remarks is it had the feel, tenor, and to a degree, the content of a campaign rally. You know, they played the campaign soundtrack before the president walked in and after he walked out. He used some of the same lines we heard on the campaign trail so frequently in 2024, from references to Al Capone to references to his grievances with the legal system. He referred to U.S. attorneys under President Biden as evil and rogue. He referred to Judge Eileen Cannon, his appointee in Florida, as a wise jurist for dismissing his classified records case, and he referred to television news analysts as scum who should be illegal. He did all of this in front of the top leadership of the FBI and the top federal prosecutors in America.
Scott MacFarlane of the Justice Department, thank you very much. Ty Cobb joins me now. As you might remember, Ty Cobb was White House attorney during President Trump's first term and worked extensively on the Robert Mueller Russia collusion investigation. Ty, it's always good to see you. Did you listen to the president's remarks this afternoon? And if you did so, what's your top line response or takeaway?
I did, my friend. And I have to say, as a former Justice Department official and longtime prosecutor, my heart sank a little bit to see the Justice Department used as a stage for the functional equivalent of Cortez after vanquishing the Mayans, while his people were carrying out the dead bodies, telling them how great things were going to be, and making it really plain to the world and the country that This is not an independent agency anymore. This is not an independent office anymore, the Justice Department. This really is his Secret Service. He's got Kash Patel and others lined for the vengeance that he made plain that he's after today. And I have to say it's a sad day for me.
Let me play you something that the Attorney General Pam Bondi said before President Trump took the stage. Let's listen.
He will never stop fighting for us, and we will never stop fighting for him and for our country.
The Attorney General saying out loud, we will never stop fighting for the President of the United States. Does that cross a line, Ty?
Well, she didn't even say that, Major. She said for him. So it's not even the office, it's the idol. And that's the tragedy here. I mean, if it was for the presidency, fine. The president's a constitutional office, and their oath, after all, is to honor and preserve the Constitution. That, of course, is not what's going on. This is all about idolatry. And as Emil Bove made plain in dismissing top Justice Department officials, including those who had loyally served the country by pursuing the evidence in the cases against the former president, President Trump at the time, cases in which, by the way, President Trump never contested a single fact or allegation in an indictment. All he contested was, his autocratic ability to do whatever he wanted. So I think it's sad. It's not what the Justice Department should be doing. It's certainly not the focus of the oath that they take, and it's not their responsibility to serve the man. It's their responsibility to serve the Constitution. And it's very dangerous, particularly when you have Article 1, the legislature, Article 2, the presidency, Article 3, the courts. The legislature has been neutered by cowardly Republicans. They're not doing anything to stand up to the president. The president has made plain he's going to run roughshod and may not even obey Supreme Court orders, certainly not going to obey district court orders, and lavishes praise over dim-witted partisan sycophants like Judge Cannon, which I think there's not a single person who's familiar with her, ever served with her, witnessed what she's done, who sees the virtues that he sees in her. It's really a sad day all around.
And Ty, what you just said about Judge Cannon, in his remarks at the Justice Department, the president said that should be illegal. Criticizing district or appellate federal judges should be illegal. He also threw the news media in there as well.
Yeah, of course, and he thinks a lot of speech should be illegal. Now that's a marked departure from the history of the principles that our country was founded on. But he's already demonstrated that in scooping up, the Colombian Palestinian demonstrator for suspect, reasons, hard to articulate legal reasons, apparently very hard to articulate because they really haven't been articulated, sweeping him off to secretly to from taking him from New York and putting him in a jail in Louisiana, to the frustration and anxiety of his 8-month pregnant wife. There are a lot of speech norms that are being broken here. There's a lot of stuff that he would like to make illegal, criticism of him being foremost among it. And of course, as we've seen, he's trying desperately to rewrite history by firing the prosecutors who did their duty and pursued the cases against him, trying to pretend that the January 6 people who violently attempted to obstruct the proceedings in the House with Mike Pence and endangering Mike Pence, that they were somehow political prisoners. I mean, this is really craziness, and I don't know why people think the emperor is clothed, because the emperor is very naked.
Ty, I want to ask you about something that you worked on directly with President Trump, and that's the Russia investigation. The president said today those who were involved in it were vicious and violent and should be prosecuted. I just want to level set people to remind them. There was a Department of Justice Inspector General investigation into this that found that it wasn't politically motivated by the FBI. John Durham did a special counsel investigation which yielded 1 probationary penalty for 1 person and 2 acquittals. meaning the underlying impetus for that investigation was subjected to all manner of scrutiny by the Inspector General of the Department of Justice and a special counsel. And almost nothing of merit was successfully prosecuted.
So I think it's hard to parse that. It's hard to simplify that. Obviously, there was, as we know, that the Russia investigation, although it was started under the pretense that there was, Russian collusion, the evidence later developed that was, bought and paid for by the Hillary Clinton campaign with the assistance of the Perkins Coie law firm and others. There are nuances there that sort of require balancing out. But yes, I think the theory that it was somehow violent and otherwise inappropriate for Mueller, who never appeared to know about the initial facts that started that case in terms of the political efforts by the Clintons, et cetera, et cetera. I think there's no evidence that anybody associated with Mueller, with the possible exception of one or more of his staff, had any political motives. And I think they did a dutiful job. I worked very closely with Mueller and his staff. I found them very professional. I've always I've always been saddled with the fact that I may have represented Trump in one of the few things that he actually didn't do. On the other hand, I think it was an important process to go through and get out and get the facts out. But yes, I think what you say and what he has reasons to be bitter about what happened in connection with the initiation of that investigation and the money that went into buying the Steele dossier and other things. But he doesn't have a right to be bitter at all about being prosecuted for having classified documents in Mar-a-Lago, which he obviously did. In fact, he admitted it. I mean, when he was showing them to people, saying, I probably shouldn't show you this. This is wrong. Even Susie Weil was going to be a witness against him. So, as I said before, none of those facts are contested. It's only Trump's view of the world that he, as a former president and as president, is authorized to do whatever he wants. And that's going to be the confrontation at the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is up to this. I think they didn't roll over on the birthright citizenship. They didn't roll over on other matters that have come before him. Trump's lost in court 45 times already in 7 weeks. So I think the courts are going to be up to this. Sadly, unfortunately, so it's Article 2. It's the Article 3 courts versus the Article 2 president, with the Article 1
legislative
Congress
branch
on the sideline.
Right. Ty Cobb, appreciate it as always. Thank you, sir.
Great to be with you, Major.